Recently, I made an absolutely enormous song and dance about these, the ASICS DS Lite X-Fly 5 Pro Limited, which is far too many words for a pair of football boots, but I even went as far as to call them the best boot that I have worn this year. Now, that obviously meant that I had to go and get my hands on these. This is the DS Lite X-Fly Pro 2, which is, imagine taking this and putting it on a little bit more of a slightly more aggressive, slightly more speed boot feeling chassis. Even the touch is a little bit thinner, a little bit sharper, a little more speed boot, definitely a little more modern, and I think going to be to an awful lot of people's tastes. So, should you try them? Are they worth your go? And where can you get them from? That is the discussion today. Let's start by looking at the upper, which is the same incredible microfiber synthetic. Now, I said it on these, I'll say it again with this. You just can't tell the difference between the synthetic leather here and actual leather. Now, I will go as far to say that I think the way that it's done, the way that it's finished on the X-Fly 5 Limited is actually slightly more leather-like and maybe slightly nicer, but it's still equally incredible on here. Slightly nicer, equally incredible. That makes sense. We'll move on. On the X-Fly Pro 2 has all the same softness, all that same leather-like quality, but it does definitely feel a little bit thinner on the ball, slightly more barefoot, and overall, as an upper package, the way that the upper works is altogether a little bit more responsive, and like I say, maybe a little more modern. The fit as a whole, just to skip to that very briefly, is also slightly tighter, slightly more sculpted, and slightly closer to you. So you've got this closer fit with a closer, more direct touch on the ball when compared to the X-Fly 5. None of this is a bad thing. It is all just a case of preference, and I adore this. I think the touch on the ball is amazing. It has just enough direct feedback while at the same time having enough plushness and a little bit to take the edge off that you just don't get in a lot of modern speed boots. This is something very, very special and quite unique as well. Then the upper through the midfoot area here, through this area here, nicely structured to allow the upper to be nice and responsive. And check out how deep and how wide this lacing system is with a floating tongue. So realistically, what you've got is something that is going to be great for people who have a wider or flatter foot. I think these are a fantastic option. So using our current ranking method, we're going to give the upper as a whole a massive up for just being this incredibly soft boot straight out of the box. So let's give the break-in time another up. I reckon it took about 20 minutes to get these broken in properly. So that's getting an up. We're also going to give an up to the overall shape, the use of this lacing system, and the fact that they're going to be great for a huge variety of people, including if you have a wide foot, and you can probably get them tight enough in if you do have a narrow foot as well. So that is another up. The touch on the ball is elegant, consistent, and yet still direct enough to comply with this idea of this being a speed boot within the ASICS line. So that's getting another up. And if you watched my review on these, you can see kind of where this is going. We very much got that barrage of incredible ups from the upper because there's very, very little to complain about. Now, I mentioned the deep and wide lacing system that you get on this, which means that the lockdown is actually really, really good. I'm very impressed, and that transfers as well through to the heel. So let's give overall lockdown and up, and then the heel itself. Now, I don't like this heel as much as I like the heel design on the X-Fly 5 Limited. I just prefer this setup. I just think it's nicer and it kind of wraps around my Achilles a little bit better. I have slightly better heel lockdown. This feels a little bit more on the bulky side, but I don't really have any complaints and it is unbelievably comfortable. The comfort is really there. I just don't think it does as good a job of hugging my my heel and really giving me that support in comparison. But the heel lockdown is still amazing, and the materials that they've used, this synthetic microfiber suede all through the back, is so premium, feels so good, and again, does a great job of gripping onto your socks. I have so little complaints, to the point where my only complaint is I don't enjoy it as much as this, which is out of this world. But we're still going to give the heel lockdown an up, and if you have heel problems, I think these are going to be a great option. If you do have a very narrow heel, this might not work for you. I do find the heel to be a little bit on the wider side. Now, I've called this a speed boot on a few occasions, and something that was thrown at me a lot with this review was people complaining about the outsole not being aggressive enough. Don't let your eyes deceive you, and this applies to this outsole as well. Yes, I know that these are conical style studs and they're not massively long, but when you take the studs and the rigidity and the way that this outsole is designed, which honestly, the snapback on this is really great while not having a stupid aggressive midfoot, but a very stable heel. It's really well balanced and it makes you feel super aggressive. And part of that is this tilt where you're tipped up slightly onto your toes. And I noticed this a lot more in the X-Fly Pro 2 than I did on the X-Fly 5. You just tilt up onto your toes slightly and you have plenty of traction. Some of that definitely driven through this toe pick stud here, really allows you to push off. And of course, you have that multi-directional movement because of the style of the studs. So you may think that this isn't particularly aggressive, and yes, you can get boots with much longer, more aggressive chevron style studs, but I think this is deceivingly aggressive, very impressive, and I think it does a fantastic job of matching with the style of the boot and also delivering pretty much exactly what you would want. I think the ASICS outsole packages that they have, because they are reasonably similar across the ranges. You can see how they look similar. This one being just slightly more aggressive. I think their outsole packages are great. This probably being the best of the lot, purely because it is that little bit more aggressive. So if aggressiveness is really an issue with your outsole, this might not be for you if you want something crazy like the Puma Carbon. But if you just want a good, well-performing outsole that is plenty aggressive for the boot, I wouldn't complain about this one bit. So we're going to give the sole plate and stud pattern 2 ups. One for the stud pattern, one for the sole plate. So that's the tooling as a whole, 2 ups there. And we are also going to give an up to the responsiveness of the boot as a package, because this is just really, really good. Now, I mentioned earlier that I haven't tried these out in a wet. There is essentially a fabric piece on the underside of these of this particular sole plate. I don't know how that's going to hold up in really bad conditions like wet, mud, or anything like that. It's an odd choice for me. It looks fantastic. It feels really nice. But I don't know how that's going to hold up in really adverse weather. So, yeah, just something I wanted to mention. I do, of course, also want to mention the fact that the outsole is riveted, and overall, the durability of this boot has been excellent. So we're going to give the build quality and the durability as one another up. So let's talk about the fit. I've already mentioned that I think these are going to be a great option for people with a wide foot and a flatter foot. I know they usually go hand in hand, but a flat, wide foot, and that applies all the way through the boot. It does have a slightly more pinched toe box than the X-Fly 5, and the toe box itself is also slightly lower volume. The boot as a whole is actually slightly lower volume, but none of this would put me off buying it if you do have that wider foot. For sizing, I have gone down half a size in this particular boot, so it's a US 7.5, UK 6.5 that I've got here, where I would normally go for a US 8, UK 7 in, for example, a Nike boot. This is absolutely my recommendation to get the best fit, the best performance out of this boot. However, do be aware that in doing that, my toes are perfectly on the end of this boot, which is a sensation, a fit, a feeling I absolutely love. It's exactly the same as I have with this. But if that's not the fit that you want, you're probably not going to suffer too much going up a half a size, because the distance really is going to be so small considering how tight down half does run on me. If you are finding that you either need to create a little bit more room or just lock yourself in a little bit better, the ASICS lines do come with this extra little lace hole at the back so that you can put in a runner's loop. This is a massively welcome addition, something more brands should absolutely do, and I'm using it just to get that extra bit of security. I think that the runner's loop it's almost like a must put in if I can, and I'm going to give another up to them just adding the runner's loop at all. Let's address the elephant in the room. I think I may have already used that phrase once. If I did, it's another elephant. Same room, it's a cavalcade of elephants walking by. These are quite hard to get hold of in most of Europe and also in the US, which is where the two areas where most of my viewers are from. So how do you get these? Well, this exact boot in this exact colorway you can pick up from Tokyo Football. This is how I got mine. I will leave a link down in the top pin comment and in the description. Tokyo Football are not, I don't get money if you go and buy boots from Tokyo Football. They're really great guys, so please go and check them out. And this is where you're going to be able to pick these up. They ship worldwide, so check them out. And they do good grip socks too. Just as an aside, I'm wearing them in most of this video. So Tokyo Football to be able to pick these up and also pick up grip socks and a lot of other Japan-based boots or Asia-based boots that you might not be able to find in the US, in the EU, in the UK, or anywhere else. I've practically given up trying to convince people that weight doesn't matter, so let's weigh the damn boots. These come in at 196 grams in a US 7.5, which is absolutely on par with any other top-end speed boot on the market right now. Absolutely incredible. And in comparison to the X-Fly 5, which come in at about 203 grams, it's really along the same ballpark. And if you want to check out my review of the X-Fly 5, click this video right here.